Stephen Blaine, your host with Wytlabs, an e-commerce marketing agency. Today's guest is Colin. Colin, feel free to let our viewers know a little bit more about yourself and share your background.
Well, I'm a serial tech entrepreneur and #1 bestseller author on Amazon for Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. This was an interesting book. It took over 10 years to write. We had over 200 interviews, 6 full-time staff in the last 2 years, put this book together, and just very recently it has been awarded a number of accolades, including a Kirkus Star, and also the finalist for the IBPA Benjamin Franklin Award, one of 3 finalists. But we're going to find out very shortly whether or not we win the #1 business book of the year. It has been the #1 best Amazon seller for 13 categories. We're killing all the records. Today it's #4 for starting a business, and #4 for small business on Amazon. It's a book all about how do you start, scale, exit, repeat. And I think what interests me a lot about your podcast is we talk a lot about SaaS businesses, those recurring revenue, which I love, by the way. We talk a lot about that in the book, and we talk a lot about e-commerce businesses. And I've done about 12 successful exits so far to date, worth almost $1 billion in total valuation. I didn't walk away with $1 billion. I'm not Mark Cuban, but I did walk away with a good chunk of that. But it was really 2 of them were public companies, and a lot of different investors were involved in these companies. The fact of the matter is, I love SaaS businesses. I absolutely love software as a service, recurring revenue. But then I also love e-commerce businesses. We have a company called paw.com, and it has been 3 years in a row on the Inc. 5000 fastest growing company list. We hit $39 million in revenue a couple of years ago. It's pulled back a little bit since the post-pandemic high, but we're coming back very strong. And paw.com is all about, how do we provide high-level products and services to homeowners and dog owners. So think of us as the Wayfair of pet products. We do pup rugs, car seats, and blankets, and we pioneered those 3 categories for pet products.
That's great. So what inspired you to write the book? We'll start with that.
So back in 2012, I was asked to speak at MIT to a group of entrepreneurs. There's an organization called EO. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a group of entrepreneurs. There's 18,000 members. Some of them would go to a class at MIT called the Masters of Entrepreneurship program, run by Vern Harnish, and at the time, Patrick Tian, who runs Rhythm Systems now. And they asked me to come and talk about how is it possible that you've done this over and over again? You started, you scaled, you exited, and then you repeated it over and over again. What was the secret sauce? What was it that you did that others haven't considered doing? Or what is it that you continue to do over and over again? So that was the first thing. I walked in there. I did a 4 or 5 hour lecture. It was received very well. It was the highest rated speech in the particular program. And then I said, okay, I've got to put this into a book. So every time I got on a plane, I was working on it. I was writing stories. By the way, the book is a compilation of stories, my own stories, successes and failures, by the way. There have been a lot of failures. And also the 200 people we interviewed, about 50 of those people actually made the book. And we talk a lot about their failures and their successes as well. It's a bit of both. It's all about learning. So it's a compilation of stories that draw conclusions. And so it all started from that speech at MIT, and then it snowballed from there. And finally, we got it out. We published it with Forbes Books, published it on October 3rd, 2023.
Awesome. That's amazing. So who is your target audience for the book, and why is this book better for entrepreneurs than any other book?
So it's interesting. A lot of people will say, you seem to have 2 targets. Because it's really serial entrepreneur secrets revealed. That's our tagline on the book. Starting a business, it covers that in depth. Absolutely goes. If you've never started a business before, this is a perfect book for you. Because it talks about how to actually start the business, but then how to scale it and how to exit it and then how to repeat. And even when you start your business, you want to begin to think about the exit in mind. Okay, so it takes you through all of those components. But if you started a business before, if you're a successful e-commerce business, or you're a successful SaaS business, this book can help you scale. In fact, the largest section of the book is scale. And we talk a lot about the different techniques that I've used in my businesses to scale, but others have used as well. And we've interviewed many authors, including Vern Harnish, who wrote Scaling Up. We interviewed Joe Foster, who was the founder of Reebok. That's a fascinating story, and how he caught his big break. And maybe we'll talk about that in a minute. We interviewed, and you might not know this one, but he was one of the top authors in business, Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm and Inside the Tornado. And to me, that was so amazing to have the opportunity to interview like one of my icons, one of the people I grew up in the 90s reading his books. I'm trying to understand how it is that he would grab a particular shift or technology shift like AI, which we're experiencing now. So we had the opportunity to interview so many great people in this book, and those lessons and their stories are combined in this book.
Awesome. What are some challenges that you faced writing the book, and how'd you overcome them? Or you could talk about the challenges you face as an entrepreneur. That's an even better question.
What's funny, because they're almost similar.
No, there you go.
Right? What goes through your mind when you're trying to start a business? It's doubt. You begin to doubt yourself, right? I never wrote a book before in my entire life. And I really believed up to the date, and I know it's been recognized by all these awards, and it's #1 bestseller on Amazon. Before we came out with the book, I'm still thinking, you know what? Nobody cares about books. There's thousands of books out there. What does it really matter? Why am I doing this? I'm not really a good writer. I've never been a good writer. I did have good editors, by the way, just so you know. And I have
It's
reviews
important.
that talk
Important.
about my writing style. A lot of your reviews have talked about my writing style being very plain. Like,
Uh-huh.
I come from a farm. I'm a farmer in
Uh-huh.
background and whatnot. I'm not a complicated person. It's not ethereal. So am I really? I shouldn't really be playing in that world. I shouldn't go into that game, which is a doubt. It's a doubt for this book. It was a big doubt, and it's also a doubt for any business or any startup I've ever gone into. Steve, you understand what I'm talking about here. Like, your mind plays tricks on you. Is this business really good enough? Am I really going to succeed? Why are all my friends telling me this isn't going to work? Like, you have to get through the doubt. And when you get through that doubt and push through, and if you really believe in yourself, I believe the good things can happen.
I like it. What is your future plan for yourself and the book? And then what's your future plan for the brands that you have as well that are still out there?
Our future plan for Geeks for Less, for Pensilla, for paw.com, for Escape Club, I'm involved in 20 companies, so I won't keep going. But
We need a list. We have to edit this.
exactly, it's really to scale them and exit them.
Okay.
Like, I'm obsessed with this concept of start, scale, exit, repeat, because back in 1998, we had the #1 fastest growing company in Canada.
Awesome.
We were featured on Profit Magazine, and literally front page, fastest growing company in Canada. And we decided to sell our company. We sold it to a cable company. It was publicly traded. We sold to a cable company, remained publicly traded, sort of a reverse takeover type thing. But we agreed to it. But we also agreed to an 18-month lockup. Well, something happened in March of 2000. You're a little bit too young to remember this. Do you know what happened in March of 2000?
March of 2000. I was 8, so not 100%. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was something called the dot-com crash. Okay, and basically the music stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And our company was raising $50 million at the time. And I no longer was CEO or in control of the company. And I was sort of in the back seat I was in charge of the internet division, but at the same time, and we were publicly traded, I had no control. I did not make the decisions. We had sold the company. We were minority shareholders. I owned 13% of the stock. The stock had actually jumped to over $1 billion in valuation. I'm 28 years old here. Okay. But we had 18 months. The dot-com crash happens. Fast forward 12 months later, the stock that was trading at $19 a share, I ended up selling for 6 cents a share. We lost everything. And that taught me one big lesson. It's in the book. Liquidity or control, and bad things do happen, right? So this concept that you can start a business and scale it and exit it, or start, scale, keep, is something that I've begun to think is not the way that most entrepreneurs should go.
That's fair.
I'm going to give you a couple statistics here. Over 90% of companies on the Inc. 5000 do not have venture capital funding. And Stephen, you will not believe this because you think if you get venture capital funding, you hit the lottery. 75% of venture-backed companies fail. 75%. It's a different equation. It's a different game that they're playing. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of success with Silicon Valley, but there's a lot of carnage on that highway. And a lot of companies that get a lot of funding, I call it Silicon Valley disease. It can really corrupt their company. What I'm suggesting is that as entrepreneurs, we need to think about how we can start a business, scale it, and then exit, and then repeat that. And the repeat is all about being an entrepreneur and honing the skills, because entrepreneurship is a trade like any other.
Awesome. So, Colin, what is the best thing that an entrepreneur can do to market their business when starting out?
So I am a very big believer in becoming an expert in your industry. Okay, so especially if you're B2B, if you're B2C, it's a slightly different playbook here, right? But if you're B2B, it's all about being an expert in your industry. And by the way, with AI, it's a lot easier today to do that because you have a content writing machine that you can plug in. And I truly believe it's a great tool, but you still have to personalize it. You still have to make it real. People can smell the AI. And when they smell it, they drop it. So what we want to do is really want to embrace it, but at the same time, make it personal. Become the expert in your space. Own your space and own the front page of Google. And that matters for B2C or B2B. In our book, we talk about the 4 sticky note business plan. And in the first sticky note, we talk about one of the components is what is the space you need to own? So when you set up your business, when you set up the name of your company, when you set up your title tags for your webpage, think about what is the space that I want to own if someone were to search for my company on Google, right? So what is the space that you want to own for your company? That's key. And my wife and I, we own a school in Fort Lauderdale. And I told her, like, we were setting this up like 10 years ago, we got the best rating by greatschools.org. So I said, let's put in best Montessori school Fort Lauderdale, right? I'm not going to put in best Montessori school because I can't win the space United States. I can win in Fort Lauderdale. So if Geo's a nice fence you can put around your title tags, around your positioning, do it. If you're local, play the local angle because you want to be on the front page of Google. If you're on the second page, you're done. You're done. If you're on the first page, you're now in a position to win in your marketplace.
Great advice. Well, Colin, is there what else, or what have I not asked you that you want our listeners and viewers to know about Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat, or any of your other brands?
So I will add that we had that big blow up I told you about, and that was a big lesson for us. And then what we did at that point is we said, okay, what do we love to do? We love technology and the way it changes the world. So we launched another company. 6 years later, my brother and I took it public. 2 years after that, we sold to a Fortune 500 company. And this time, by the way, for all cash. We didn't do any lockup. All right. But the fact of the matter is, you got to understand what you want to do and what you love and follow that passion. A lot of people were going into the .com and they were running from it in 2001. And we kept with it. We loved it and we stuck with it. And we continued to produce company after company that was very successful. Timing matters. We sold that company 1 month before the Lehman crash. We sold .club, which is an alternative to .com, .net, .org.
Yep.
We sold that 6 months before the tech wreck in 2022. Right? I sold Geeks for Less, 2/3 of my shares, a year before the war in Ukraine. You could look at me and say, "Oh, I've got the best timing in the world." Yeah, because I was a 28-year-old fuck up, right? And I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So that's it. I'm telling you, you got to look at timing. It's not a good. So one of the things about exiting your business is you're going to look at timing. And there's a lot of different indicators, but the number one indicator I talk about in the book is look at the IPOs per year, the number of IPOs that occur on an annual basis. When the IPOs drop to a very low level, that is absolute the worst time to sell. When you have record IPOs and SPACs were going big and NFTs were going big, and you had Board 8 selling for $500,000 NFTs and all this stuff. When the froth is in the market, it's time to exit stage left. Let other people make the money at that point.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Well, Colin, I appreciate you coming on. Your story and hearing about all your brands were amazing. And thank you for coming on today.
Well, I really appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you.